And so if you had somebody come in and say, I'm going to shut down Bitcoin, guess what everyone would do? They'd rally around it and they'd go buy as much Bitcoin as they could before that happened. And they go and they put it in cold storage and the price would skyrocket. Bitcoin is going up because it's time to go up, because we had a 50% supply shock. Demand has not changed. Actually, it has increased. Bitcoin's gone sideways. The coiling of the asset is ready to unleash. And here we go. And so I'm not bearish. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy Bitcoin or hold Bitcoin. What I am saying though is you should understand that happiness comes from a meeting of expectations and reality. And if your expectation is that Bitcoin's going to $500,000 in the bull market and that doesn't happen, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to feel disappointed. But instead, if you have lower expectations and reality matches or exceeds that, then you will be happy. And so set your expectations lower for any sort of price movement in a bull market. And that is the way to guarantee that you are happy over the next 18 months. Bonds drive a negative real rate of return. And so it is dumb to hold bonds that do that. Again, you can argue with me all you want. That's dumb. How do I know? Because I have money in the market. Does the person who's writing this article, are they buying bonds? Show me your portfolio. If you're telling people that bonds are going to do so well, go put 100% of your portfolio in. Because if you're not willing to do that, then you shouldn't be able to write this report.
Bitcoin is about to hit new all-time highs. Anthony Pompliano, a leading voice in the crypto space, believes that Bitcoin's next surge is imminent. In this exclusive conversation, Pompliano reveals why Bitcoin's upward movement is not just speculation. Key factors like global economic trends, political shifts, and technological breakthroughs could make this the biggest crypto opportunity yet. If you're not tuned in, you could miss out on Bitcoin's next major price jump.
It's not going up because of any of it.
Is it the election?
People are just grasping for straws. No, it's not going up because of the election. It's not going up because of the ETF flows. It's going up because it's time to go up. Sideways summer is now officially over and we go up from here. And so if you go back, you can use 2020 and 2021 as the perfect overlay. People forget that we already had a supply shock earlier this year. The supply shock is that halving. And so in May of 2020 is when that supply shock happened. Bitcoin was trading somewhere around $8,000, $9,000. We then went the whole summer, sideways summer, and nothing happened. Everyone's like, well, is it broken? You know, it's like a meme where they're like, with the stick, we're just poking it, like, does it work? And then all of a sudden we got to the end of October and up only, and we went from $10,000 to $64,000 by March. And so in 6 months or less, we went up 600%. Fast forward to 2024, there's a whole bunch of chaos, FTX, nonsense, bear markets, bull markets, interest rates, all of it is noise. What we are watching is we are now going to get the pricing in of that supply shock. When we had the halving, we're pretty much flat to today. Sideways summer happened, the sideways summer is over, and we go up from here. And so people will try to attach Bitcoin to all these different narratives. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who the president's going to be, Bitcoin's going up. Doesn't matter what the monetary policy is, Bitcoin's going up. Doesn't matter what happens with the ETFs, Bitcoin's going up. And so Bitcoin is going to go up from here. The question is not whether it's going to go up, it's how much is it going to go up. And the severity of that move is going to be greatly determined by a number of different factors. Obviously, you need more buyers than sellers. You need people to not sell and kind of hold that Bitcoin. All those things, they do not impact direction of travel. They impact the severity of the move. And so my guess is that we are going to see over the next 18 months or so, a pretty substantial move in Bitcoin. My only word of caution is do not expect it to be nearly as big on a percentage basis as it has been in the past. And so if you're used to 500, 1,000% move post-halving, maybe you should expect maybe 100 or 200% move, which still is great. But as an asset gets larger and volatility comes down, the asset naturally can't just keep compounding at these really high rates of return forever. Bitcoin is going up because it's time to go up, because we had a 50% supply shock. Demand has not changed. Actually, it has increased. Bitcoin's gone sideways. The coiling of the asset is ready to unleash. And here we go. Because in countries where they have banned it, Pakistan, Nigeria, China, adoption goes up faster because the people understand that the government is full of shit. And so if the government says you can't have something, people are interested. Look at every industry that they've ever said you can't participate. The people revolt and they go and they adopt that industry. And so there's a huge argument that the war on drugs actually made the drug industry bigger. If you look at prohibition, yeah, sure, you pushed it into the shadows, but it actually probably made the alcohol industry bigger. And so if you think about kind of these industries have like a respawning of them, what you did is you just pushed it into other form factors. The people get what they want. And so if you had somebody come in and say, I'm going to shut down Bitcoin, guess what everyone would do? They'd rally around it and they'd go buy as much Bitcoin as they could before that happened. And they go and they put it in cold storage and the price would skyrocket. So actually by them embracing it, it is making Bitcoin something that is, it's not that it's not going to go up. It's just not going to be a violent move upwards as people maybe think. Instead, you get what we've seen. Bitcoin is up about 60% so far this year. And so that's a great performance for any asset. But 60% in a year where gold is up 30% year to date, it's only up 2 times more than gold. And so you look at that and you say, look, it's not that crazy outperformance of, gold's flat and Bitcoin's up 500%. And so I do think that you've got to kind of contextualize this. Yeah, I do think that there's a very strong argument. The Bitcoin community is good at a lot of things. One of the things that it is not good at is intellectual flexibility. And what I mean by that is it's very hard for Bitcoiners to hold in their head, I want mass adoption and I'm willing to give up returns for it. But that is what mass adoption means, is if you want everyone to hold the asset, then you are going to get a dispersion of ownership. You are going to get a dampening of returns because it is less risky. So buying Bitcoin in 2024 is child's play compared to buying it in 2016. But if it is less risky, the risk you take is the return you get. And so you should expect a lower return. And then the other thing that you got to look at is both candidates are saying that they are going to be positive, but it doesn't matter. The president of the United States cannot really do anything to hurt Bitcoin. A lot of people say, oh, what do you mean? They could go and they could outlaw ownership. There's a lot of countries around the world that have outlawed ownership and Bitcoin did not care. Continue to produce block after block after block of transactions and Bitcoin is fine. So you can hurt the American citizens, but you can't hurt Bitcoin. And so that is really important because ultimately Bitcoin's value is derived from the fact that it is not controlled by anyone. It's never been hacked. It is a programmatic monetary policy that is globally accessible to anyone in the world. The most powerful person in the world, the president of the United States, cannot wound and kill Bitcoin. Instead, Bitcoin will survive the president, Bitcoin will survive the country, and Bitcoin will also continue to produce blocks of transactions regardless of what policy is in any one country. And the craziest part is even if every country came together and they said, we're all going to collude and we're going to shut down Bitcoin, they couldn't do it. Bitcoin is the strongest computer network in the world. If you take AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure, you put all that computing power together, Bitcoin is still bigger than all of them combined. Mm-hmm. This thing got talk about the public health crisis that got let out of a lab. This thing got let out of a lab in terms of the free market of ideas, and it is winning in a meritocratic kind of world because it is the best idea. It is the best implementation. And so people want to attach these narratives because it makes us feel better. But the simplest explanation is the most likely.
Bitcoin's growth is driven by supply shocks and market stagnation, but there's more at play. Anthony Pompliano highlights institutional adoption as a key factor. Major players like hedge funds and corporations are increasingly viewing Bitcoin as a reliable store of value. This growing demand, coupled with Bitcoin's limited supply, could create significant upward pressure on prices. The weakening US dollar also boosts Bitcoin's appeal. As the Fed continues to manage interest rates, the dollar's purchasing power declines, positioning Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, a digital alternative to gold. Lastly, technological advancements are bringing Bitcoin into the mainstream. Innovations across industries are making it clear that Bitcoin is more than just speculation. It's becoming an integral part of our financial future. Stay tuned, because this video will reveal more reasons why Bitcoin is set to skyrocket.
Bitcoin is still quote unquote riskier than buying the S&P 500. So you should expect it to outperform the S&P 500. And risk is not true risk. Risk is basically how many people in the market believe that this is safe, likely, consensus, you use your term of choice. And so my expectation is that Bitcoin will do better than gold, stocks, real estate, anything else, but it's just not going to perform on the upside to the degree that it has done it in the past. By the way, that's what every cycle of history so far shows, is that the returns in the first cycle were highest, the second cycle were second highest, the third cycle were the third highest. It's going to continue, but Bitcoin is up 60% to start the year. There's not very many assets that you could have bought at the start of the year on January 1st and outperformed Bitcoin. And so I'm not bearish. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy Bitcoin or hold Bitcoin. What I am saying though is you should understand that happiness comes from a meeting of expectations and reality. And if your expectation is that Bitcoin's going to $500,000 in the bull market and that doesn't happen, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to feel disappointed. But instead, if you have have lower expectations and reality matches or exceeds that, then you will be happy. And so set your expectations lower for any sort of price movement in a bull market, and that is the way to guarantee that you are happy over the next 18 months. The S&P 500 is destroying historical returns and has been for a long time. Why? Because inflation is higher than it historically has been. Earnings are better than it has historically been. These companies are more capital efficient than they've ever been. Think about how efficient some of these companies are. We've never had trillion-dollar companies before. They're still compounding at incredibly high rates of return. One of the most interesting things about some of these companies is that as they get bigger, they grow faster, rather than as they get bigger, they grow slower. And so this idea that somehow the S&P 500, which right now is returning 11% a year, is the latest data. So on average, it's returning 11% a year. If you hold bonds, you're an idiot. That point blank period. TLT over the last—
This is not financial advice.
TLT over the last 5 years is down like 25%. How is holding bonds? You don't make money. The real return on bonds is negative. On top of that, you get the capital is being eroded away because of inflation.
Right.
So people sit there and they say like, oh, I'm holding bonds. I have a 3% return, blah, 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 whatever. No, you don't. You're losing money. If you have a stock market that is priced in dollars and the dollar is being debased, you can't lag inflation because the inflation pushes the stock prices up. You're the 500 largest companies in the United States. You're the best companies ever created in the history of humans. And they're telling us that they're going to grow at less than 3% a year for the next decade.
That's what they're saying.
Which means it's a negative real return. These people have lost their minds and they're violating rule number one. Warren Buffett is very fond of saying, never bet against America. Goldman Sachs is basically telling people you should bet against America.
Well,
That's what they're saying. They're saying the S&P 500 is going to deliver a negative real rate of return. So if you, as an investor, read that and you want to make money, essentially you should bet against America.
Yet,
you should sell and not lose money because a negative real rate of return means you're going to lose money holding the S&P over the next decade, according to this report.
Bitcoin could be on the verge of something huge, and Anthony Pompliano has made it clear why the final quarter of 2024 could be pivotal. Between the Federal Reserve's actions, technological progress, and Bitcoin's steady rise in adoption, the pieces are falling into place for a major move. Keep watching, stay informed, and don't miss out on what could be the biggest financial revolution of our time.